Good evening, everyone.
LPAlliance.
Welcome to a live stream from LPAlliance. This is an emergency broadcast. I am Amanda Griffiths, one of the members of LPAlliance, an inter-caucus coalition dedicated to unifying and rebuilding the Libertarian Party. You know that we're live, and you know that we did an emergency broadcast because we don't have Phil. We were a little bit late setting up a news stream, but I am here with Kyle and Rose, and we are going to start talking about the events of the past week, which has felt like a decade. To bring everyone up to speed, yes, on Saturday, Chair Angela McArdle offered her resignation. She has not formally had that resignation approved yet. And immediately, she also offered Michael Hayes as a potential replacement. The Mises Caucus leadership that will be responsible for appointing the chair for the most part is currently fractured between Michael Hayes and Jonathan McGee, although there are others who are clamoring for Justin Amash to step in. So right now we are hearing rumors about intimidation, about threats to push for Michael Hayes at the expense of the others. We're hearing about Jonathan McGee as a compromise candidate. And we're hearing a lot about different directions for the LP, depending on who steps in. So Kyle and Rose, thank you so much for being here. Kyle, you are really tapped into a lot of this. So what did I get wrong, and what else do I need to mention?
So Jonathan McGee has kind of been bounced at this point. Anybody who is not sort of bowing the knee to, or bending the knee, to Michael Hayes is just getting the axe. Even people who have been there as part of like the Mises Inner Core since the beginning for 6+ years are getting blocked and thrown out of the group. It is an absolute like shark fest. There is blood in the water and people are being targeted.
All right, so Jonathan McGee, you're saying is out of the Mises Caucus or out of the running?
He is out of the Mises Caucus, as I understand it. He is still in the running potentially for things with chair and vice chair, although now he has seemingly withdrawn his name for vice chair. So there's a lot of things in the air at the moment. And LNC has to be pretty tight-lipped about it, so we're not getting the full story, but that's, it's very like backdoor politics at the moment, which is unusual for the LNC to be this level.
And the LNC is responsible for this vote, but technically they could be checking in with the delegates. Is that correct?
Sure. They each of the region reps could be reaching out to their states to figure out where their states are standing on everything and really get a feel for where the Libertarian Party is and where at least state leadership is. But instead, it seems very much to be a play between just a few people on Michael Hayes' end, including folks like Andrew Chatterton, who's infamous for his attempt at double electing himself after he lost his first election. So it is wild. It's legitimately is like a Republican Democrat levels of disordered fighting right now.
And why the insularity? I mean, we should be decentralized, correct? So we should be asking delegates from different areas. Is that wrong?
No, it's not. I completely agree with you. One of the things that's been very weird with this entire process is we've watched David Hines and Michael Hayes both consistently yell about how the only way forward is to vote for Hayes because Hayes is the only one who can save us. While the plan that Hayes is supposedly putting through is Project Decentralized Revolution, where the entire concept is everything should be local and state up. So we've got this weird concept where everything's supposed to be local, everything's supposed to be grassroots, but the only person who's capable of running the grassroots is King Hayes at the top of the pyramid here. It's a pretty wild dichotomy in strategy there.
And of course, we are being told that Hayes' opposition are the ones who do not support Project Decentralized Revolution, which is interesting. Rose, I want to bring you in here as well, because if anyone watched our last live stream, Rose is a former member of the Mises Caucus and has dealt with some rough tactics herself in terms of getting booted, in terms of trying to raise objections and their response to it. Is this par for the course, Rose, or is this a little more intense, what you're seeing?
Well, it's been very interesting to watch the process because it felt like there was a gradual process where they were starting to alienate their members gradually over time, because I dealt with this in New York. Like tons of people when the New York chapter first started having regular meetings, like tons of new people were coming in, and things at the beginning were very decentralized. Like I didn't even pay attention to what was going on at the national level for a long time because there was no need to. Like we had our state chapter, we had the state organizers who would, kind of hold regular meetings and put out ideas for how we could recruit people. And then along with other people who were local to my area, like we would do these regular get-togethers where we'd meet up with other libertarians who were nearby, and we'd encourage them, bring your friends who might be kind of liberty curious, and we'd all have a fun time. We'd get dinner or we'd discuss libertarian philosophy over drinks. Sometimes we'd get new members. Like there was no real need to pay attention to what was going on at the national level. So then, as time went on, though, like these people were excited to early on, but then kind of one by one, they just kind of disappeared. I guess either they lost interest because nothing was really happening, or they maybe some of them saw the direction that the caucus was going in. Like once I decide to get involved in something, I tend to be pretty stubborn. So I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily agree with some of this messaging I'm seeing, but okay, maybe they just need somebody better in charge of their messaging. Maybe they just need better leadership. I think this is still salvageable because I like the overall idea of decentralized revolution. Maybe I like the idea that they can provide assistance to people who want to run locally, or for assistance for people who want to lobby for laws at the local level. So in any event, we had I think around probably around 2022, maybe about a third of the New York or the Libertarian Party of New York State Committee was Mises. Then that dropped. As of the beginning of 2024, there were maybe six or so active members. And this is where I started to really have reservations because I wasn't happy with some of the messaging, and then I felt like things just kind of went downhill from there. And then I was a delegate at convention. I can get into that if you like, but I did notice that more people seemed to be getting kicked out for going against some of the tactics of the leadership, and in any event, things have spiraled faster and faster. I feel like they've really centralized, or they've made attempts to really centralize their power. They've become increasingly intolerant of dissent. It felt like they were kicking out anyone who gave any criticism of the current tactics they were employing.
This is, of course, the $1 million question, but why the change? Do you have a theory of why this switched so rapidly? Was there some kind of threat? Was there a perception of disunity? What was going on?
Well, I think early on, during the Reno convention, they had the numbers to be able to win without having to resort to dirty tactics. I know people who come from different state parties may disagree with me, because I know there are people who come from state parties where early on they were resorting to all sorts of dirty tactics, but I did not see that personally. I think early on they had a lot of people who joined because they genuinely believed in the message that the Mises Caucus claimed to stand for. They saw a lot of energy behind this new movement that said that they were going to retake the Libertarian Party and steer it in the right direction. A lot of them were people like me who were kind of disappointed with some of the messaging from the Bill Weld type candidates. So these are the people who went to Reno and assisted in the takeover. They were able to win with numbers. I think as their numbers dwindled, they started to feel like, oh, well, we've got people dissenting, and it felt like as their support dwindled, they became increasingly intolerant of people who questioned or went against the leadership. It also felt like they were becoming increasingly out of touch with the general opinion. I don't know how to explain.
What do you mean by that? You just said you didn't know how to explain, but can you elaborate a little bit?
For example, like at the DC convention, like, so we were told to vote no on seating the Michigan delegates. Now, okay, I've talked to people on both sides of the Michigan delegate issue. The whole thing seems like a dumpster fire. I don't really know what the right answer is. However, it was not exactly explained. It really was not explained to us at all, like what the situation was, why we were supposed to be voting no against these delegates. We were basically just told, vote no on this. And like, it was just kind of taken as a given that we were going to vote no, and that we were going to vote as we were told. Well, a lot of Mises delegates didn't do that. And the leadership genuinely didn't seem to understand why. Because there was maybe about 2 weeks after convention, there was a convention postmortem that was done. And the consensus seemed to be, oh, well, I guess we just didn't get our vote announcements out in time. Maybe there were 2 Discord servers that had whip announcements. There were people standing up holding signs. Like, clearly people knew that they were supposed to vote no. They clearly did not do so for a reason. But no, in actuality, it's because the whole thing was very off-putting. Like, we were told vote no. It was not well explained why these people should not be seated. And then just the whole attitude towards it. Like, we were told, oh, the is going to be so great. I'm like, the whole thing was just very off-putting. Like, it seemed like the right thing to do to vote yes on seating them. Because and I remember having this conversation with some of the people in my state. I'm like, we should win by being principled and making people want to vote for our candidates, not by refusing to seat people. And it also seems like a very concerning precedent. Like, I feel like you could go through the meeting minutes or the recording of any state's convention where they elected their delegates and find some little thing that was done out of order. Like, it seemed like, this was not a precedent we wanted set, because, do we really want every convention going forward to have have to go through this whole thing where we challenge one state's delegates because we think they might vote against us and we don't want them seated? Yeah. So
there are a lot of moving parts here. There are the embezzlement and fraud allegations against Angela McArdle, who was a member of the Mises Caucus, was recruited by Michael Hayes to run for chair. Michael Hayes is the founder of the Mises Caucus. And then we're also hearing about, from Rose, sort of perceptions of losing their grip, it seems. There was always talk, that I'm familiar with at least, of a need for unity, even if that came at the expense of removing some of the more progressive, friendly libertarians from the party. Kyle, you've been in this space a long time. What do you think was the genesis of this shift from, all right, we're Project Decentralized Revolution, where we're taking the party back to fall in line, ideological lockstep. If you don't vote this way, you should resign. What changed?
So, my understanding, and if I'm mistaken, I will preemptively apologize, is that Michael Heiss is a Hoppian. He follows the ideas of Hans Hermann Hoppe. And one of the things that Hoppe believes in his theories are that people will naturally fall into order, and that you naturally have some sort of leadership in the pyramid, and there are naturally classes. And this class building is sort of the foundation of the Hoppian covenant community. There is a leader at the top of every community, sort of a mayor, etc., and everything falls down from there. I think, based on things Michael Heiss said early, before the Mises Caucus really got going, because if you look at the early Mises Caucus, the early Mises Caucus is a lot like it is now. There was that period in the middle that was reasonable, like as far as like for the people who were coming in, and everything was left sort of to the communities, as it were, in their own states, just like what Rose is talking about. if you go look at the Mises Caucus of Washington, you go look at Georgia's Mises Caucus, they're not the same at all. They're both part of the same national group, but the people and the way things are structured and everything else are totally different. And I think it was a sort of understood concept that anytime things go to a national political level, every one of them should pay fealty, for lack of a better term, and should do whatever national says. And as long as national doesn't say anything, no problem. But if national comes out, then the leadership from each state should be instructing everyone below them to do the same thing. At the convention, which I don't remember which convention this was, the Mises Caucus actually had signs for who to vote for, because instead of trying to teach everyone how the procedures work and how we're all going to vote and trying to get everyone out to everybody, it was just, we'll hold up a sign, do what the sign says. And so it's this kind of idea that, like, you know, you're supposed to trust Michael Heiss. You're supposed to trust whoever's leading, because it wasn't always Michael Heiss. Sometimes it was Angela, and sometimes it's the currently listed chair of the National Caucus, whose name is escaping me at the moment. And so when it first started out and was really small, Heiss sort of had his cabal of leadership and the people he could kind of tell, this is how we're going to do this. And they're like, all right, you've got the plans, you're getting people in, you're good to go, we'll follow what you're saying. As it started to grow, it kind of got away from him. And I think that's part of the reason that he left for a while, when he talked about how he had to step away and go take some personal time, that he was sorry to leave everybody. And it sort of left de facto Angela McArdle in charge. She wasn't as focused on any of the micromanaging stuff. It was a good time for people in a lot of the states, New York being included there, I think. Mm-hmm. And then now a lot of the people are leaving again, and so Heiss is sort of coming back to the front. So he's trying to take charge back because he sees this thing is slipping away.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I will gladly have a conversation rather than monopolizing.
Oh, no, I think, yeah, because what I was kind of getting at back there is, they kind of started to lose their ability to, like, I don't know, people just kind of stopped following or taking, like, I think they were expecting people to basically just blindly follow them. And then when that stopped happening, they were caught off guard and they didn't know what to do about it. Because, like, the months following convention, like, things just really started to spiral faster and faster. They became increasingly intolerant of dissent because I think they thought, okay, we just need to purge the people who are not going to be in complete lockstep with us. So, yeah. But again, like I said, it also felt like they were kind of out of touch with, like, why exactly people were starting to get disillusioned with them and why they were, voting against them or otherwise in disagreement with them.
We do have, by the way, someone, again, this is what happens when you have an emergency live stream. Sometimes friends of ours also in the Alliance come in and want to talk. So we do have Nathan Madden, who is ready to join. Hi, Nathan. Thank you for being on. Can you introduce yourself? And you are muted, so unmuting would be wise. He might be away from his computer right now, so we'll come back to him in just a moment. But Kyle, so as far as you're aware, we have a few different figures, right? We have Angela McArdle, who seems to, if the allegations are correct, been acting on her own behalf. We also seem to have a sort of ideological divide with Hoppianism in the party. And we also have, because of that, this model of, you defined it as the covenant community, where state reps are sort of acting as rubber stamps, more as bureaucrats when they do receive orders from national. Is that correct?
Yeah, the general idea being that, like, you know, as long as national isn't telling you what to do, you have your total autonomy there. But as soon as national says something, you need to do it because national has to be right. Mm-hmm. This concept that leadership really is the only source of truth, as it were, and it's just as from a libertarian perspective, and knowing like Rose at this point, knowing a lot of people from the MC, it's very weird how well everything grew to me as someone who's sitting on the outside, because I was aware of Michael Heiss in 2016. And so I saw Michael Heiss start and it was like, oh, this guy is going to be a problem. And then, Nick Sarwark kind of stepped up and was like, we're not touching these people. These guys are crazy. But the message coming from the Mises Caucus wasn't insane. To the people they were trying to bring on. Like, you look at people who are, downright moderate. You look at Michelle McCutcheon, et cetera, and they all got invites to the Mises Caucus. It's not like Heiss was targeting only people as extreme as Heiss is. And so you're really watching as this movement grows. And, as someone who was never part of Mises, it was one of the am I the one that's crazy? There was a lot of questioning if I was insane. Because it's like there's all these people that I like and I trust, and they're proper principled libertarians. And are they saying something that I'm not? And I think what happened is, as it got away from Heiss, it became something good. It became something that was really powerful and growing. And that's how you end up with people who are really principled and good and willing to work and fight for the party. But now we're seeing a point where there's this natural coming back together of the party, right? Where everyone wants to be like, okay, the divide is done. We don't need this caucus thing to do it anymore. The party exists. We can all get back on the same page. And because that page isn't listening to Michael Heiss, I think Michael Heiss is afraid.
Oh, yeah. So like when I first joined, like I had heard the criticisms, but I'm like, look at all these highly principled libertarians who are in the caucus. Like, yeah, why would they be associated with it if all these claims were true? Like, it really was easy to just dismiss the criticisms as a bunch of losers who, yeah.
And was that was your experience as well, the sort of am I crazy moment that Kyle described? I would imagine so. We do have a comment from Sherry on X. Holding of signs during the chaos of a convention is not new. Audacious Caucus held up red and blue dildos to signal how to vote. When it's an amendment to an amendment and maybe a call to the question, what are you voting on? Libertarians have long twisted Roberts into knots. I don't think any of us will disagree with that. So it's not a new tactic, but there are some rather unprecedented tactics that we are seeing now. One of which seems to be the way that Heiss is trying to whip support for him. And Kyle, you've been attuned to this. What are you hearing about how Heiss is trying to take as many votes as he can?
Oh, man. The one that I thought was most egregious is the Mises Caucus all got emails that everyone who wasn't with Michael Heiss specifically, not even the people that were part of Mises who were also running, like Jonathan McGee, but specifically, if you weren't for Angela and Michael Heiss, you were against Project Decentralized Revolution.
And we received an email to that effect, yeah.
Right. PDR is not new. That's literally what the party's been trying to do since the 80s. It's literally the strategy that Nick Sarwark was running with that Heiss said was terrible. And the reason is that, well, okay, so this is a bit of a critique from my own perspective on Nick on this one, even though I really do like Nick. We were not advertising our wins in the way that the Mises Caucus has done very much better than the old Libertarian Party was. When Libertarians fought for weed legalization across the country, and we really focused in Colorado in the early 2000s, no one heard that was the Libertarian Party, even though it was. We were out there campaigning in cities all across Colorado. My sister-in-law was there and was part of it. But we don't hear about that. We don't hear about how libertarians were some of the biggest pushers of gay marriage, of the fact that if there is going to be licenses from the government, which we're all against, but if there is going to be a license for marriage, it must be equal across people. And the government doesn't get to decide who can and can't have one based on, as long as they're consenting adults, right? So I would argue that one of the things that Heiss has really done well, right, that he's really, really been successful with, and Angela's been successful with, is advertising wins. I think that that's something that should absolutely be done in the future. I think that, if a cutesy name like Project Decentralized Revolution, or before it, the Frontier Project, which was a failure for a different reason entirely of spending too much money, if those are the party strategy, that's well and good. But we do have to advertise as we win with them. We have to tell people how good it's going.
Right, which has to do with the criticism that we'll routinely hear. Well, what have libertarians done in the past 50 years? Quite a lot, both directly and indirectly. Right. Not just as spoilers, but really with the sort of post-mortem effect and with direct action, which I think we're all fans of. Now, there's some talk that Hayes's people are trying to get the LMC to back his chairship under threat of removal or resignation. What's up with that?
Yes. Similarly, we received an email from Andrew Chatterton, who made it very clear that if you did not vote for Heiss, there would be severe consequences. And the push was specifically to pressure the Region 1 rep. Either Region 1 rep votes our way and votes for Heiss, or he's pulled so his alt will be there and can. Lots and lots of libertarians have critiques of democracy. Lots of us have problems with voting structures and things. But when we have come together and we have bylaws and we have an agreement that we've made, and we've all agreed to that agreement by becoming members, right? When you have that agreement and you come and you strong arm someone, and you say, it doesn't matter that you were fairly elected. If you don't do what we tell you, you're fired, even though the people around you voted for you and the delegates voted for you and the people believe in you. That's pure tyranny, right? It is authoritarianism.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like the whole region rep system, in theory, like I know the Mises Caucus was actually pushing to get rid of it, with the explanation being that, they're not accountable to the LNC. They're accountable to their state affiliates in the region that they serve. Well, I mean, I honestly think that's a good thing. Like trying to get rid of them seemed like a blatant power grab. They didn't get their way on that because we didn't get to bylaws at convention for a variety of reasons. But it seemed like they kind of found a way around that by merging different regions into various super regions and forcing people that they didn't like off of the LNC. Like it basically gerrymandering. Like they could have states that were Mises controlled in a particular region. Then they could have region reps that were Mises friendly. So they still got the people who are basically members of their caucus, if not, well, a lot of them are were members of their caucus at the very least, who were serving as region reps. So, I mean, the idea, like, this is a tough one because, like, in theory, they are supposed to serve the states that in their regions, and if they piss off the states in their regions enough, like in theory, yeah, they can be removed, but I don't know how legitimate it actually is. Like, are the opinions of these state chairs actually shared by like the membership body of their state parties? I also have to wonder, just like, is it a bluff, or like how easily could they follow through on that threat? Like, I know each state has its own bylaws regarding voting for removing a region rep, like in New York, like in the LPN1. Yeah, like, they have.
I do know this one.
Okay.
So each of the regional agreements actually ended up being the same. And so all you need to remove a rep are a majority of the state chairs to say that they want to remove them. That's it.
Right. But like, because I mean, we have that agreement in Region 6 too. However, like at least in New York, like before the state chair can vote to remove a region rep, they need to get approval from at least 2/3 of the state committee. And I imagine other states have similar rules, so the state chair can't just act on their own, as far as I know. So I'm wondering, like, yeah, I'm wondering, yeah, can they actually do that? Again, they all have their own agreements, they all have their own bylaws, but just wondering if it's as easy as the state chair is just getting together to remove the region rep, or if they'd have to get approval from their state parties first, or what.
So right now, if you know, Kyle, what is the breakdown in terms of vote share? People who are backing Heiss, people who are, and this is on the LNC, people who are backing Heiss, people who are backing McGee, and people who are backing Amash. What's it look like?
My understanding, and that's from watching the vote totals on the open Google Docs, are that generally speaking, Justin Amash is the most popular, but he doesn't have enough at the moment to get over 50% of the vote to guarantee that victory. Similarly, Michael Heiss doesn't either. A lot of people would literally rather vote Noda and leave the chair open than vote for either. And so there's this kind of, power struggle, and people are making deals, and people are talking behind the scenes, and we'll see how that comes out over the next couple of weeks. There's a meeting this Sunday that is very likely going to let us plebeians in the audience know a lot more. And it's one of the things that I've watched that I think is wild is even Angela McArdle hold the vote for Karen Ann, right? Suddenly, removing Karen Ann can't be done because Karen Ann is someone that they can potentially manipulate her vote. Which, if you know Karen Ann personally, you should know that unless you manipulate her mind to convince her that something is the right way, you're not going to change her vote. If Karen Ann doesn't agree with you, she will not agree with you. It's that simple. It's one of the reasons I actually like Karen Ann as a person a lot. She's not playing a game when she says, this is what I think, because that's what she thinks. It's just wild. So the meeting this weekend doesn't seem to have anything about Karen Ann. There's a ton of motions. It's an off-schedule meeting. It's wild. It's political horse racing at the moment.
I'm just disappointed. I'm just disappointed we didn't get to see her run the meeting where they were supposed to consider disciplinary charges against her. Come on, that would have been hilarious. That would have been one for the LP history books.
For anyone who does not know this story, Karen Ann has been a thorn in the side of Mises Caucus leadership for quite some time, ever since attempting to put the Libertarian Party candidate on the ballot in Colorado, and perhaps before, which is a grave violation of her position and definitely an attempt to usurp the will of the LNC. That is a direct quote from soon-to-be former Chair McArdle.
They loved her until all of a sudden they didn't. And because she was one of the people who, because she kind of represented the, based, philosophically consistent anarchist position. I did warn them. I'm like, I feel like you're going to alienate a lot of people if you try to remove Karen Ann. Well, lo and behold, they did. A lot of people saw that for what it was and saw it as obviously wrong. And I think they pissed off a lot of people by trying to do that.
Getting back to the present, Heiss wants to be chair now. So McArdle has offered her resignation. Now Heiss really wants these votes to come in very quickly and come in his favor. What might be the advantage of that for Michael Heiss to get in very quickly, and what might be the advantage to McArdle?
The longer this goes, the more evidence is going to come out. We saw the information that Jake Porter posted from Delaware on Austin Padgett's company. And they are trying to run a disinformation campaign there, already hardcore, where I'm going to call Heiss loyal. Mises loyal doesn't sound honest at this point. That's not what it is. The Heiss loyal people are trying to make the claim, well, we don't know that Austin's still involved with it. We don't know they didn't render services. We don't know that it's fraudulent, even though it's against the bylaws. And they don't care. They don't care. It's everything is trying to twist this back around to being okay. The longer it goes, the more things came out. Jake Porter today, 9.5 hours ago or so, found $4,000 more that went to another one of Austin's LLCs. This is something that's a lot of money we're talking about for the Libertarian Party. Sure, if we're talking about $100,000 being embezzled for the Republicans or Democrats, they're literally spending billions on a single campaign. We don't. We make $1 million a year. Our biggest ever candidate with Gary Johnson was like $2.5 million. I mean, like it's we are orders of magnitude lower on our fundraising than they are. So taking altogether about $100,000 for yourself out of $1 million is a lot. You know, it would be the equivalent of the Republicans embezzling $200 million, right?
Right.
Obviously, that's not completely apples to apples, and I'm sure that if someone is pro-Heist listening, they're screaming at me at the moment. That's fine. You can do that. I'll take
Hello,
it.
pro-Heist people watching. We welcome you. We do. I am very happy to have you personally.
Yeah,
sorry,
we
Kyle,
were there once, or some of us were there once before. I probably know exactly your thought process because I probably went through it myself, and people tried to point out the fact that I was involved in an organization that wasn't what it appeared to be.
Yeah, and I will say, by the way, for the record, there has been we've been trying to in LPAlliance, where we actually do have several people who were part of the Mises Caucus and who are still supportive of the original ideology espoused by the Mises Caucus. We do try to differentiate and make that separation between Mises Caucus, like old school, you support the ideology, and true believers in, I suppose, Heis's vision, part of the LNC leadership. We try to draw that line. The terms are always changing, so it becomes difficult for us to do that. But if I'm not mistaken, then, so there is a lot of information still to uncover as regards an investigation, which has only been conducted informally. Were we to have a forensic investigation, of course, that would cost a lot of money, but we could get even more things that would come out. If Michael Heiss is able to get that chairship quickly, and he is so inclined, he can make sure that certain records are deleted, and he can make sure that this investigation just doesn't need to happen onto bigger and better and more unifying things. Is that accurate?
Yes. It's potentially, as a person who's done IT forensics before, I would probably have worded a little bit differently to make the CYA, but I personally agree with everything you've just said there. Yes.
Okay. And so that would be. Now, we also, by the way, in LPAlliance, we did put out a list of questions that we hoped, in spite of ourselves, that Michael Heiss would answer regarding some potential conflicts of interest that he might have with his PAC, where he is paid through his PAC. And here we have it right now. Thank you. That's Justin Amash, which we can also talk about. But no, Devin is doing great work behind the scenes and can pull this up for us, where we were running down a list of just, again, nothing ideological, but related to conflicts of interest. Presently, his PAC seems to have been responsible for much of the support for the Mises people on the LNC. There is a concern of undue influence there. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
sorry,
go on.
Angela TC from Michigan just pointed out, and she's 100% right. Dissonant Media, Michael Heiss's media company, can sell ads to the LP. That's clearly a conflict of interest. There is no way that someone who is running for chair should be able to decide to run ads from his own company with everyone else's money from another company of his. It's just blatantly dirty.
Right. The fact that, like, everything is being done so quickly, like, there should be time to have these questions answered and to address people's concerns. Like, I mean, I'm personally of the opinion that until an investigation has been done, there should not be any new permanent officers appointed. Like, I think we should have an interim chair appointed, and we should wait until a full forensic investigation is done to find out the scope of the corruption and, like, who may have been involved in it. Until then, though, I don't think we should be appointing anyone else, let alone someone who's already on the LNC. Like, it just seems like a terrible idea.
So this is interesting. Kyle, do you agree with that? And in terms of transitioning to moves that we can take going forward, so you would say just all interim positions?
I would think that an acting chair, acting vice chair with a limit makes a lot of sense here. I have seen also from some of the Angela Heiss faithful the idea that we can't possibly afford this investigation. And I believe Devin's actually got a comment queued up about this one. So I'm moving us a little bit here. But the claim is that the LP has no money and thereby it can't be done. Again, just like Angela's saying here. However, Susan Hogarth, chair of the Radical Caucus, for those who aren't aware, took an informal poll on how much people would be willing to donate. And the 10 grand is there. 10 grand is plenty to get this seriously started, where people are 100% ready and willing to donate to show what's going on and make sure the LP isn't liable for anything. None of us want to see this party die. None of us want to see this party get lawfared out the window. None of us want problems with it. And in my mind, in my opinion, if Michael Heiss cared about the party, not about his power with the party, not about some claim of idealism for the party being a strike at the heart of kings, if he truly cared about the ideals behind the party, he would be right there with us. He would want to show that this is open, fair, that Angela didn't do anything wrong, and Angela should be the same way. And instead, Angela's in meetings actively turning down motions to push for openness, motions for this investigation. Even the investigations from the LNC itself are being pushed away like they're problematic.
Right.
It's despicable.
I feel like they should have been passed already, because those should have been no-brainers, just like the motion to accept the resignation. Like, clearly they're being slow-walked for a reason. And yeah, the whole thing is just very shady. Like, yeah, if it feels like the attempt to kind of rush Michael Heiss through is a last-ditch attempt to keep their grip on power, because I think at this point the Mises Caucus is well aware if they lose if they lose the LNC, they're not going to be able to win again at convention by being voted by delegates. Like, the votes are not there, and they're probably never going to be able to regain those votes. So this is their final opportunity to keep their grip on the Libertarian Party.
And I suppose if successful, they could have a successful recruitment operation to bring more people who would be more faithful to that kind of vision into the party.
That's what the RFK push right now is.
You think so?
I guarantee it. So Mises has actually had kind of a 3 turnover thing since Heiss has started. When it first started, it was almost uniquely the Unite the Right people who were angry about Nick Sarwark reaching out to all the states to ask that we pledge that, or that we denounce the bigotry that we saw at Unite the Right, and saying that that's against free speech. They're not wrong in that it is free speech. You have the right to be as nasty as you want to be. I hold that close to my heart. I will fight for even a Nazi's ability for his free speech. The moment that free speech becomes violence, the moment it's inciting violence, and I mean actually inciting violence, I will be there to fight him. It will be a immediate change from which side I'm standing on. And the people who were doing that were the same people that once the MC became larger and more palatable, wider, were the ones who went after people individually. And this wasn't a thing that we saw in every state by far, but any major figure who didn't bend the knee got targeted. We saw it happen in LP Texas. We saw it happen in LP Pennsylvania. To someone who lives 20 minutes away from Heiss, and then Heiss acts like he's not aware of it. We saw this happen in personal violence, where people were being threatened, their actual lives and their actual jobs were being threatened because they refused to be part of Mises. Not because they disagreed, not because they did something different, not because their plan was different, not even because they were voting against the plan. For not becoming part of the group and becoming part of that groupthink, they had their life threatened. And honestly, deeply, I don't think most of the people in Mises are aware of it. And when you have so many people who are loudly like, you're all garbage for it, it's really easy to push it away. It's really easy to be like, these people don't like me, so they're just making shit up. And I understand that. I don't hold the people who are in Mises I like Rose a lot. I'll talk to Rose every week. I usually do talk to Rose every week. But there's this little fringe that Michael Heiss had the ability to talk down, and he didn't because he knows they're bulldogs to go out there and attack people with. People have suggested that maybe even like Adrian Malagon's there. I don't think that that's Adrian's MO. I know a lot of people don't like Adrian. He's very cutting to lots of people. I don't personally know him. I don't have an opinion thereby. That's why I sound so neutral on him. But he doesn't seem like a person to stab you in the dark, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The people who went after Jen Moore, who went after Whitney Billiou, they are. They absolutely did it quietly.
I feel like I was spoiled because like we didn't have these sorts of tactics in New York for the most part, at least not that I know of. It wasn't until like I'd been involved for a couple of years and I started actually talking to people from other states who, like, I'm like, okay, I guess people have actually valid reasons for hating the Mises Caucus. It's not just because they're being sore losers who are mad about losing their elite social club or whatever the talking points were. I know them all too well. Like people who had like people from the Mises Caucus send them death threats. I know of one person who had pictures of their pets sent to them as a threat. Or people who had like people call their employers and tell lies about them or start spreading unfounded rumors about them. I wasn't aware of the full extent of some of the dirty tactics that were being used until I started actually talking to people who had been there, had gotten on the wrong side of the Mises Caucus, and ended up being targeted.
So you're saying death threats, death threats, calling employers and saying slanderous things, potentially.
Some of the things were super sexual in nature. One of the things they went for women specifically, because that's always how the low-life attack is, right? Misogyny is easy. Is to take the shots.
I love it. Sorry, go
on. That they would take shots about. They would send emails out to the people in the group and say this person's committing these deviant sexual acts and everything. They would tell their family and friends at conventions and everywhere else. And so you have these people who are afraid for their lives. And I know that there's someone listening who just rolled their eyes at me. Without naming her, which I'm hoping that we end up getting to talk to her with LPA at some point, she went into the convention for the first time ever carrying because she was so afraid for her life, even though she was going to continue to run it, that she felt she had to have a gun on her hip. Because she was afraid for her bodily autonomy and her own physical safety. That's not okay. I don't care the ideology behind it. I don't care if it's 100% right, and you're saying that these means will get us to the magical Ancapistan that most of us want to see. I don't care. If the methodology to get there is terrorizing people, fuck you.
Mm-hmm. So, and if people didn't see, there was a comment that came up from Angela. It said, in Colorado, there was actually an arrest after a death threat. I'm not sure. I don't know many details about that, but clearly this is not one or two incidents. This is a consistent problem. This has happened, on multiple occasions. Correct.
In Pennsylvania, one of the guys who was in Mises for years and got pushed into being the treasurer of Mises for a while, he is now in prison for murdering someone.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah. And Mises will talk about this. Like, we got rid of him. And it's like, you got rid of him like 6 months before he killed someone. After years of him assaulting people, years of him getting people's face, violating the map, and it being like, he's a good guy. He's just over the top sometimes. He shouldn't drink. No. When we say we're against militarization, when we say we're against bodily harm, when we say we're against anyone violating the NAP, that's internally twice as hard as it is externally. We all signed a pledge to be here that we don't believe in violence of any kind. The only way you get violent is in response to someone else being violent. And the first time anybody in the party is violent to someone else without there being a provocation, a real provocation, that person is the only person I'm ever going to vote for being pushed out of the party entirely. If you can't keep your hands to yourself as an adult, you don't deserve to be at the adults' table.
And yes, the pledge is literally, I oppose the use of violence or force to achieve political ends, which is pretty much exactly what this sounds like. I want to transition to Justin Amash, and if there's more to say on this, then we certainly can come back to it. Justin Amash has thrown his hat in. He is known to be considering this. So this is not just a protest vote kind of situation. Justin Amash is considering being chair of the Libertarian Party, if that's where the votes are, if that's where the LNC votes are. The question is, how might Justin Amash fare when he is up against a Mises-dominant LNC?
Well, how dominant is it really? Like, it seems like there's a lot of, it seems like the Mises Caucus leadership has fractured. Like, I mean, there had been different factions of it for a while. Like, for example, in the months leading up to convention, there was this whole thing with the Joshua Smith faction causing problems. And it seems like there have been different factions that have come and gone. Like, is it possible that the anti-Heist faction that, from what I can tell, was recently kicked out anyway, like, might they support Amash, or like, is he going to get resistance from all the different factions? And again, I honestly don't think we should be appointing someone permanently anyway. I definitely prefer to have Amash over Heist, but yeah, I don't know.
There's a criticism involved here, which is, well, didn't so many of the Mises dissidents, didn't they oppose throwing ourselves behind Donald Trump, who is a Republican? Well, what gives if we're begging for a Republican to come in and be chair of the LP? What's the response for that?
This one to me is easy. A Republican leaving the Republican Party to come be a Libertarian is not equivalent to the Libertarians leaving the Libertarian Party to become Republicans.
Uh-huh.
It's really that simple. Justin Amash has been a Libertarian. He's a lifetime member who paid his own way and wasn't given one, which is a thing we could get into on RFK. RFK did not pay for his membership. We know who did. It's Glenn Rink out of Arizona. Like, anyone who wants to go look this up, it's on the FEC site. It's from the end of November. You can see the address is in Arizona. That's because it's not RFK Jr.'s. Justin Amash paid his way. Justin Amash has been a member for over a decade. Even when he ran as a Republican, he espoused libertarian ideals and has talked about the libertarian movement. He talked specifically about the fact that the only reason he wasn't running as a libertarian is because he knew he could get that Republican money, and that was the way to win. He tried to be our presidential nominee in 2020, and he's willing now to stop being able to run for Republicans, obviously. He's willing to stop his own business ventures that he's currently working on. He's willing to stop all these things to work full-time for the Libertarian Party. Donald Trump never offered anything remotely like that. Donald Trump offered hey, if you will come vote for me, I will maybe give you one promise.
One promise that was already made to Thomas Massey by some accounts.
Right. Like,
he'd already made it to us. He made it to Nick Sarwark in 2019.
Oh, right. Yeah. And then he never got around to doing it. Like, I'm willing to give credit where it's due. Like, I think the Libertarian Party kept it, like, they kind of kept it in the news cycle, and they kept pushing for it during election season. But yeah, I mean, after Trump was sworn in, like, it took several major senators, like, it took Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, and then eventually even Elon Musk to put pressure on before he actually signed the papers. Was he going to do that anyway, and they just reminded him or made him do it faster, or was he going to do it anyway even without their pressure? I don't honestly know. But yeah. But here's the thing. So when it was first announced that Trump was going to be attending the Libertarian Convention, like a lot of people were very pissed at it, or pissed about it. Even me, who was generally a supporter of the Mises Caucus, like I'm like, this is idiotic. Like, why are we having an opposing candidate come to our convention? Everyone's gonna think that like he's our keynote speaker and that we're endorsing him, even if we're not technically endorsing him. It's an effective endorsement in the eyes of the general public, and also it puts everyone's safety at risk. Like, okay, like, yeah, the thing that ended up
a month later, he was nearly shot.
Do you know how easy it would have been for that to have happened at the Libertarian Convention, and they could frame that annoying third party that everyone loves to blame when they lose their elections?
That's called relevance, Rose. That catapults us into relevance.
Oh yeah,
I've never heard a better pitch, quite frankly. I'll write it down.
We were responsible for a political assassination. But yeah, that is one way to be in the news. It's also one way to get branded as a terrorist organization.
Potato. So what in the short? No, you're fine. In the short term, in the immediate term, what needs to happen going forward to restore the Libertarian Party's integrity?
From my perspective, we need the trust of our members back. That is the number one thing that has to happen. That's part of why I'm behind Justin Amash so hard on the chair position. Not because, we've had talks privately, Amanda, and Rose has brought up excellent points today about the problems with Amash becoming chair right now. Amash, oh my goodness, my brain. Amash also has said that he wants to be a unifying ticket, and I don't think that's the thing that's happening right now. We need transparency into the books, because right now it certainly looks like there's some kind of financial shit show going on. How did we blow through the entire year's budget by the convention that was supposed to make us money?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, problems happened with the convention overran its budget. Okay, how did we blow it again afterward?
Money in. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. We were told it's going to bring in all this money. Oh, and we have an opportunity to get Ross freed. Like all the stuff, all the negotiations that happened after that were never that was never part of the deal that was sold to us.
Right. We have to have representatives in the region reps who are listening not just to the chairs, not just to their caucus, etc., but to their party. I'm in Georgia. Georgia is one of the states that has Mises-backed leadership. And people who've been part of the party for 30 plus years are being pushed out right now. That's a tragedy. When we look at, and I'm going to mention this only because it was in our public financial report, when we look at Bill Redpath, the current LNC treasurer, you can see how much he has donated to the party since 1991, and it is 6 figures. And we know from Mises leaks that there was an attempt to have Bill Redpath burn off the LNC. That's insanity. Bill Redpath has been so good for the party consistently, and they're gonna push him out because he doesn't toe the line. They cannot fathom this as someone who believes so strongly in freedom of speech. So we need that transparency into finances. We need that transparency into the books. We need belief again in bylaws and the policy manual. And we need, in my mind, this is not going to be a super popular thing for some people, we need to shift the power away from the LNC.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we preach all the time about the president is if you're worried about who gets the presidency, the president has too much power. That's true of our party too. If we're worried about who the chair is, if the chair is going to fundamentally make or break the party rather than be someone who's going to do a little better or a little worse at managing finances and campaigns, they have too much power. That's true for the entire LNC. Like Rose talked about with Mises' leadership across the states earlier, right? They were doing good things. There was a lot of push behind it. States were growing. It's effective. After 2020, after COVID, a lot of the states were really down. A lot of us were burned out and everything. In 2022, there being a reset, a lot of people were excited about that concept because it meant, there's this big push behind the libertarian movement again. We're going to go after the people who push the lockdowns. We're going to go and push libertarianism everywhere. That's a great pitch, right? That is an easy sell to libertarians.
That's why I joined. I'm like, something needs to be known about this COVID, and the Libertarian Party's messaging was so weak about it. Like, yeah, that was why a lot of people joined.
Right.
Yeah.
These are great solutions. And I think, Rose, do you have anything to offer in terms of restoring the integrity of the LP?
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, one, yeah, there need to be several changes to the bylaws. I think one, yeah, there needs to be transparency. Like there had been for years. Like there was the public business list, and then that was recently it was decided that, oh, we don't want our drama being publicly aired or some other weak excuse, so we're going to hide that. Like, yeah, we need to restore transparency. Also, I think that LNC reps need to be able to be recalled by the body of by the membership body. It feels like, even though there technically are procedures for recall, it seems like the bylaws were never written with the idea that like all or most of an LNC could be corrupt. Like it seems like a relatively new situation. Right.
Ken Molman had a solution for this, and it got shot down in 2022.
As we've seen, like if most of them are all like on board with each other, like you can have completely corrupt officers and nothing can be done. The membership body does not have any real power. So I think we need a system where LNC reps or LNC officers cannot recall each other. They cannot remove each other outside of maybe like a few exceptions for particularly egregious behavior, like getting caught embezzling party funds. Otherwise, though, I think that only a vote of the delegates should be able to recall a rep or an officer.
We are coming up on 1 hour. We're just over 1 hour, but Devin has a statement from Radical Caucus Chair Susan Hogarth, and I have bias toward the Radical Caucus. But yes, we have this statement here discussing exactly what needs to happen and calling for an investigation, which I don't think any of us disagree with. This is again from Susan Hogarth, more or less arguing that there needs to be a vocal push for change and for examination. And yes, again, so this is about 10% of last year's income that we're talking about. Again, $80,000 is not a lot if we're dealing with one of our two major parties. When we're talking about the Libertarian Party, it is a big deal. And it's the type of thing that does require an investigation, certainly, at least in my opinion. And it's something that I would be very worried if a chair, if an interim chair, if anyone stepping in were to sweep past that and sweep it under the rug. Once again, because we are coming up both, we're post an hour and we're also coming up at the death of my laptop battery, very sadly. It's a very straight, I even when I try to charge it, if I'm streaming, it's just not going to take. So quick close, or not, it doesn't have to be that quick. Closing thoughts from you all about where to go next and how to agitate for some change in the party.
If I may, Rose, it's Joe Hanush likes to point out a saying that I like a lot, and he likes even more than I do, which is be the change you want to see, right? And I think that it's 100% true. I think the only way we see these bylaws change, the only way we see the party get stabilized again, is a grassroots push from the bottom up. It's what Mises did. It's what Heiss pulled together that worked so well. We all have to do the same thing to pull the party back together. That includes MC people. This is not me doing some, get rid of the Mises Caucus for doing Mises Caucus. We need to heal the divide because the libertarian movement is bigger than any one of us. The only way we all get our individual freedom is by working together on it. So anyone who's watching needs to go get active with their local affiliate, with their state affiliate, and eventually with national. Go out to your conventions. Show up and vote your conscience. There are groups that believe in this change. Come be part of the LPAlliance. Come be part of one of the libertarian groups. Understand the situation, put in your vote, and be the change you want to see.
And we will make sure that you have those connections for getting to convention and making sure that, yes, your voice is heard. So we will work with you to make sure that you have what you need to the greatest extent necessary. We'll do what we can for you. Rose, final thoughts.
No, I completely agree with what Kyle was saying. We need to, like, I would like to say, like, it's been very inspiring seeing the energy behind the push to retake the Libertarian Party in recent months, because I feel like, okay, there was a particular group of people which seemed like it was unclear exactly how many people they represented, but in the years following the 2022 convention, like they'd complain a lot about how unhappy they were with the direction of the party, but there was never any real plan in place to retake it. And then in the months leading up to the DC convention, like, okay, like you'd see ideas here and there for things that should be done, but there was no real plan. And I was honestly surprised, like when I got to convention, at just like the lack of strategy or planning by the non-Misons factions. So yeah, I feel like that's really changed. I feel like people in the months following the convention have kind of hit their breaking point, and now they're like, okay, we're done. We need to retake this party. Otherwise, we are at risk of losing it forever. So yeah, it's been really nice seeing the energy that's been behind the push to retake it. Yeah, I hope we're able to keep growing this and keep reaching out to the people who felt like they had no choice but to walk away, or felt driven away, or just lost hope and decided it was a lost cause. I'm hoping we can get them to rejoin us. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm floored every day, really, with the creativity and just the spontaneity in LPAlliance, and really just comes from everywhere. There's no time limit, before we're willing to take you on and to have you volunteer things with us. We want you on board. We want as many people on board as we possibly can have, and we want to be able to provide you the resources that you need to be as effective as you need to be and get your voice heard, because that is the important thing. Again, our website is scrolling down there on the ticker. It's, well, no, that's not our website. That's our Discord group. But we also have a website, which is LP-Alliance.com. And we would very much look forward to having you there, having you write for us, having you, get out and recruit for us. So please come on board. It has been an absolute pleasure once again, Kyle and Rose, talking with you. And it has been a pleasure streaming to our wonderful audience. So thank you all. And from vision to victory, let's get it done.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks, Rose.
Thank you.